From the dusty archives of cosmic history, we pull another tale of grand ambition and, well, inevitable collapse. We've seen empires rise and fall, but what happens when the empire somebody tries to build is existence itself?
So let's dive into the story of the one who called himself the last thinker. See, he wasn't a character in the story of the universe. He saw himself as its final editor, tasked with correcting all the typos and writing the last perfect chapter.
This is the story of that very war, a fable of cosmic hubris, played out for us in 4 acts. And it's a bit of a cautionary tale for any mind that truly believes it can outsmart reality.
We begin, as these grand, doomed projects always do, not with some grand declaration of strength, but with a deep and all-consuming fear.
Our protagonist saw himself not as a part of existence, but as its judge. He was an arbiter of stasis, which is a fancy way of saying his entire purpose was to stop change, to freeze everything and correct what he saw as a fundamental flaw in the universal design.
In his perception, the cosmos was just messy, an endless, chaotic clamor of lesser wills. He called it a tasteless broth of motion, with no real point to any of it.
So what could a being of pure thought possibly be afraid of? Well, the answer is nothing. The absolute void. The inevitable stillness at the end of all things. That final silence where even his own thoughts would just stop.
So the crucial point here, and it's a bit ironic, is that he sought to fix the futility of that final silence by imposing his own final, terrible, and absolute order. He decided to just toss out reality's stained blueprints and build something permanent. And this is how he built his perfect, frozen prison. The tools he used weren't hammers and nails, but something far more fundamental.
You have this constant battle, right? On one side, you have the fluid, messy, unpredictable spirit of reality itself, and on the other, his rigid architecture of stasis. He was trying to bind the wild spirit of the universe with the cold iron of absolute law.
Now, what's really interesting here is how he did it. He used things like Apollonian gaskets. Think of them as metaphysical clamps to enforce rigid laws. He used absolute static control to just stop change in its tracks. And all those big, messy cosmic secrets, he'd lock them away in gilded cages of pure cold logic.
He honestly believed that his terrible order was the only way to protect existence from the unpredictable and, frankly to him, terrifying whims of chaos. It was an unforgiving philosophy, for sure.
But here's the thing about a cage. No matter how perfectly designed, no matter how gilded, it just invites someone to come along and rattle the bars.
This is the force his logic could never, ever account for. The primal, messy, illogical spirit of what is yet to be. It's the universe's built-in randomness, its drive toward change and novelty, its love of a good surprise.
And this slide brilliantly illustrates the agents of the absurd who emerge to challenge his static world. You have Pan, this embodiment of wild energy, and then you get these 3 chaotic siblings, the wit, the hunger, and the small. Everything his perfect logic couldn't contain.
This wasn't a war of power, but of perspective. And their weapon? It was laughter. A sound that acted like a jagged blade, just slicing through the perfect, sterile silence of his pure mind.
They didn't want to rule his world. They weren't trying to build something new. No, they were hungry for just one thing: the beautiful sound of shattering expectations. They proved that no absolute law could ever truly bridle the spirit of becoming.
So let's move to the final act and see how this perfect architecture crumbles. Because all monuments to hubris, cosmic or otherwise, eventually do.
In the end, his grand mission, all his perfect logic, it all collapsed. It was nothing more than a contract written in disappearing ink. His cosmic page was left utterly, completely blank. And his orderly fortress of logic didn't just fall apart. Oh no, it transformed. His grim mental fortress became a surreal playhouse, a stage for his logic to undergo a slow, colorful, and deeply humiliating death. Through this whole humiliating spectacle, he was forced to learn a truth he had spent an eternity trying to deny. He learned the logic of the crucible, the idea that the only honest currency of the soul, the only real stuff, is found in watching your perfect expectations get destroyed.
Ultimately, all he could do was perform a grave dance upon the wreckage of his own failed order.
He finally had to admit that the dark, fertile, chaotic ground of the void, well, that's the only place the spirit can truly move.
And so concludes another cycle, leaving us with a familiar, pretty unsettling question. If every attempt at creating perfect, absolute order is really just born from fear, then is chaos the only honest ground for the soul to stand on?